Welcome back. Well, let's go to Tunisia now, where the government says it has major plans to request direct financing from the central bank to pay urgent foreign debts, including bonds worth about $900 million that will mature on February 16th. Now, the finance minister, Fadhel Kaboub, said the government requested exceptional direct funding from the central bank worth about $2.25 billion to fill a deficit in this year's budget, given the scarcity of external finance. Now, Boukdiri also told a parliament, or rather spoke to the Parliamentary Finance Committee, that Tunisia is committed to paying its foreign debt on time in order to preserve the national sovereignty, and that's despite all the difficulties in public finances. Tunisia paid all its foreign debts in 2023, dispelling doubts about the possibility of the country defaulting. But, of course, analysts say that 2024 will be very difficult, as the government needs to pay about $4 billion worth of foreign debt this year. That's an increase of about 40% compared to 2023. Well, let's delve further into all this with Professor Fadhel Kaboub. He is a president of the Global Institute for Sustainable Prosperity. Mr. Kaboub, great to have you with us on the show. Always good to see you. And let's start off with what the sentiment is around the government's announcement. It's planning to request direct financing from the central bank to basically fund the budget. What risks do you think such a move poses for the country's economy?
Well, first of all, the government is actually able to do this because this is the Tunisian central bank and it's a loan in the Tunisian currency, the Tunisian dinar. So this does not involve any foreign financing or any foreign currencies. So this is an internal legal issue that the government is able to do. The challenge is, what is this spending going to fuel? Is it going to fuel engines of economic transformation, or is it going to fuel the same engines of economic extractivism that have led us into this budget crisis and this debt crisis? Tunisia's structural weaknesses are three core issues. One is food imports, especially the imports of grain, of wheat in particular. Number two, it's energy imports. And number three, it's the fact that our manufacturing sector is deficient. That is, we import the machines, the fuel to power the factories, the intermediate components to assemble, and even the packaging. And we use low-cost labor to export low-value added content. So these structural issues, if the government doesn't have a strategy to actually address these structural weaknesses, then it will continue fueling the same problem. We will continue to import food that we don't have at prices determined internationally. So therefore, we'll continue to import food price inflation and fuel price inflation. That is the main concern.
But Professor, this has also raised a number of questions. Just how desperate is Tunisia right now? There are questions about the central bank's autonomy as well. What does this move reveal about the state of the country's finances and, of course, the overall economy and the central bank?
Well, the country is clearly in a severe debt distress, external debt distress. The country has major external debt commitments to meet starting this month. Actually, in February, there's about $1 billion that is due in payment. This is one of the biggest single lump sum payments that Tunisia has to make, and a few more to come by the end of the year. The government did not agree with the IMF on a new loan over the last couple of years for understandable reasons, because the IMF is imposing very painful austerity measures, including cutting food subsidies and fuel subsidies, and that affects the most vulnerable people in Tunisia. So we're not reaching an agreement with an IMF. The agreement with the European Union that was initially facilitated by Italy stalled for a while, but now it appears with the latest Italy-Africa summit that took place over the last weekend, and the Tunisian president attended the summit along with so many other African leaders. That signals that the president of Tunisia is looking for further partnership and financial assistance, or at least investments from Italy and its European partners. So that tells us that there are some severe stress points on the Tunisian economy when it comes to external financing, especially that we're so heavily dependent, as I mentioned, on food and fuel imports and basic necessities that have become very scarce over the last several months. There are food shortages and we even experience fuel shortages. There are power cuts. All of these issues are very sensitive economically, socially, and politically.
Well, we'll certainly continue to watch that closely. Thank you, as always, Professor Kaboub, for joining us on the show. That, of course, is Professor Fadhel Kaboub. He is the president of the Global Institute for Sustainable Prosperity.